Hey, AP Psych. This is Mr. Davis. Good afternoon. So today is Wednesday, April 9th. This is the afternoon live stream. And I am aware that my morning live stream hasn't popped up yet. I don't know if there's issues with YouTube or what. Sometimes it takes longer for it to post, but I'll keep monitoring that. But I know it's not on there yet. It hasn't posted, but it's on my site. It's on my channel. It just hasn't posted to my playlist yet. So hopefully that will happen tonight or later. If you want to go ahead and get out your chapter 15 lab, we're going to do tests 7 and 8 today. So we'll be doing the Thematic Apperception test, TAT, and then I'll show you an Inkblot, and we'll kind of talk about those. Some questions. So I had a lot of questions this morning. So as students start turning in their chapter 15 work, don't remember that it's not due tomorrow, it's due April 17th. Generally how I put the in-class vocab assignments in is by every 5. So it'll be 50 points. But obviously, so what I did this morning is once I put in 3 assignments, I moved that point value to 20 and then bumped those 3 students up to 20, but then everybody else had an F, 10 out of 20, and was just going to bump that up when I got them because that's just easier way for me to keep track. Obviously, that was not a good decision. And I had, within 5 minutes, I had an email, Riley Berkling, good job. And then I had 8 emails total, probably within the next, before that first live stream. So obviously that is not the best way to do that, creates too much confusion. So I've separated that out. I have corrected that in Canvas or in PowerSchool, but also I know that that was not showing up either. So I don't know if it's my laptop or what. Wi-Fi is streaming high and it's doing well, so I don't know what the deal is there, but that hopefully will be done by the end of the day. I know sometimes PowerSchool doesn't sync until the evening, so but your chapter 4 in-class vocab should be out of 10, and then now I have the chapter 15 lab and chapter 15 in-class vocab in there with their points values. Okay, so the lab is worth 75 points, so make sure that you complete that, and then after today it's all on your own. So I think 9 and 10 are the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs, which I have links on, and then 11 you get to pick your own, and then 12 is the Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat. Okay, so I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So get out your chapter 15 lab. And this did work in the morning live stream. So what I have got is I've got some pics here. So the good thing about the Thematic Apperception test is that they actually have pictures that they've used on the test that are outdated. They've posted those, and you can actually see them. And you can actually look up how to grade it. So we're going to do Thematic Apperception test first, right? So TAT. Now here's the instructions. So I'm going to show a picture on my iPad. I'm going to flip it up here on the screen. And you have 3 minutes to start writing a story about the picture that you see. Now, you have to start writing immediately. So you can't look at the picture and start thinking. You just got to start writing and then write the story as you go. Okay. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that. All right. So I'll hold up the picture here and then you just start writing, and you're writing a personal narrative or story about the picture. Okay. All right. And then this is one of the actual Thematic Apperception pictures. Okay. All right. So have your pen or pencil, and then leave some room, and then just start writing. Now you don't have to write the entire 3 minutes, but what they want to make sure that you're not doing is sitting down and interpreting the picture first and then writing your story. Because again, that's more likely to be conscious stuff. So again, the Thematic Apperception test wants to get at your unconscious mind. And that's what they want to come flowing out. So you're free associating. And then I'll tell you when your 3 minutes is up. Touch the screen. Okay, you got 30 seconds. Okay. All right, so the analysis is this. And then again, if you really are fascinated by this test, you can go online and it'll show you a bunch of pictures. Now, the ones that are best for you to do and for you to give to other people are the pictures that just have one character. All right, so there are thematic apperception tests that have 2 characters generally. There are some with more. But the ones that have one character are a little bit, I think, easier to analyze. Okay, so what you've just written a story about is yourself. Okay, so you project yourself onto the picture. Okay, and then through free association, you are projecting aspects of your personality onto the picture. So the person that you actually are writing about is not the person you see in the picture, but it is yourself. Okay, so and some people this is eerily accurate. Now again, if you look at the pictures, you're going to know that they're kind of written ambiguously with kind of some ambiguous context. Most students will see a boy, but some see a girl. Some students see a violin. Some students see a book, a textbook. Okay, but it's written to where it could be both in black and white. So that's kind of part of it, so that you can project your aspects of your personality onto the picture. Okay, now that's why it's easier for you to go through and do this again with the pictures that have one person, because then it is aspects of your personality that you're projecting on. Okay, so same thing. A lot of people want to give some of these pictures, and they'll email me for the pictures. The pictures are online. You just Google thematic apperception test and hit images. That's actually where I got this one. Okay, and this is the one I give every year because I found that it's very, very accurate. Students do accurately displace or project their personality traits onto the picture. Okay, all right. So the next one, which I think is number 8. Okay, write down Inkblot. Okay, and this one I'm just going to give you like 30 seconds. So again, the idea is I'm going to show you the Inkblot, which is a very famous Inkblot, and then I just want you to write down, start writing immediately, and write down all the things that you can see in the picture, about the picture, around the picture, okay, or anything that comes to your mind. Okay, so just start writing anything or everything you see in the picture or around the picture. Okay. All right. Now, the analysis of this one's a little bit more difficult. Number one, the Rorschach Inkblot tests, the actual analysis is kept highly confidential. Now, what we do know is obviously you're projecting yourself and your personality onto the picture. But we also know that it depends on which side of the picture you see something. Do you see the Inkblot? The entire Inkblot? Do you see something in the space around the Inkblot? Okay, do you see something on one half of the Inkblot or on the upper right, upper left? like for me, I always see, on this one, I see two sharks right here. So the heads of the sharks are kind of sticking out. Okay, there would be a separate analysis for that because I'm not using the entire picture. Okay. Okay, some people can see the mask with the white in the middle. Very popular, our butterfly bat. Okay. Then also what you need to do is realize that probably your first answers are going to be conscious, more at the conscious level. And then as you go and the more you see, the more that you're going to be accessing your unconscious mind. But you are projecting your personality onto the image. Okay. So it's a free association test and projection. Now, where this is actually really used and viewed and graded to be very reliable and valid is with children, with criminals. So they do a lot of Inkblot tests in the prisons. Also, I saw a great study where they were studying sensation seekers, your people with heavy risk-taking behavior, adrenaline junkies. I don't think I showed this when we talked about motivation, but they did a study on bullfighters, and they showed them, and they took the Inkblot test, and every single one of them saw in the Inkblot, they projected images of action, of adventure. They basically projected the risk-taking type of personality that they had onto the pictures. So it was very, very fascinating to kind of see it in action there a little bit. And it's a really old clip that I have, but that's kind of what it is. You're projecting what you see in the image is coming from your unconscious mind if you can get there. Okay. Now, first, you're probably just going to write out conscious stuff and what it actually looks like. Then unconsciously, you'll project parts of your personality onto the picture, depending on what you see. Okay. And the images will then have an unconscious meaning to you. So this one's a little bit harder because it is your unconscious mind. I know the sharks. I don't know why I perceive sharks. We think about sharks quite a bit because we vacation every week out at Nag's Head, or every summer. We spend a week out at Nag's Head, North Carolina, which is a migration pattern for sharks and for great whites and bull sharks. I've seen a shark while we were in the ocean. So we saw a shark swim right by the beach, which is a bull shark. I love Shark Week. So, sharks definitely mean something. I just haven't figured out what it is. Fear, dread. I don't know. So, okay. But I do not see a bat and I do not see a butterfly. Which is kind of interesting as well. Okay. All right. So on the 15 lab, again, the next two you have to go through. I've got links to the Enneagram and links to the Myers-Briggs. And then you get to pick one. I've got a couple of links in there for suggestions. I've got the Big Five. I got the personality match test. So again, on the personality match test, a lot of people are emailing me and saying, hey, I don't know who it is I'm matched with. If you go down from your results and you hit full list, it's going to list 120 people that you have 50% or above match with. So then you're going to get some, okay? But you can do another one if you want, okay? So just, make sure you do that Enneagram as well, because then Jada, again, YouTube has not been happy today, so I've not been able to upload her video, but hopefully I'll get that on there soon. And then that will help you explain the Enneagram, because it is so complex. You do need somebody to help you kind of understand it and get the full benefit from it, which Jade is going to do for us, and I'll have on my YouTube channel soon. Hopefully. I'm not talking about psych disorders yet. That's Psych 2. So I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. And boom, there we have it. Okay, so now we have better notes. All right, so we're going to do course fold or AP Learning Target number 4, all right, which basically says what are cultural impacts on personality and self-concept, okay? So again, keep in mind that self-concept, we mainly talked about that in the humanistic theory of personality, but self-concept is, again, the understanding of me, the identity of me, knowing who I am, okay? So obviously culture impacts our personality and it impacts our self-concept, okay, who we think we are and our identity. I've got some great studies here that are pretty fascinating that I've just quoted a few. Okay, now again, culture, again, is the beliefs, customs, norms, or traditions in a society. And again, a reoccurring theme that we've talked about all semester, all year long, is that culture impacts behavior, right? And culture is a part of our environment, which is our nurture side. Okay, so we're talking nurture here. Our environment is huge and it's very complex, and it's also divided into co-environments, if you will, or compartments. culture would be one of those. Okay, so it's one aspect of my environment. Okay, now no doubt that it impacts my personality, my learning, my intelligence, my behavior. I mean, we've talked about it just about in every topic that we've covered. Okay, so it's huge. All right, and so now we're going to specifically talk about how obviously it has something to do with your personality and your self-concept. Okay, all right. Now, one thing that we know is for a fact is that if we take personality tests that were developed in Westernized culture or in the United States, which is the ones we've been talking about, and we take them to different cultures score differently. Okay, and one big study I just read was on the Big Five. So the Big Five personality ranks you in those 5, what they believe are the core source traits. Okay, so openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Right. So they believe that everybody has degrees of those in their personality. And so what the test does, it'll tell you like you have 85%, conscientiousness, Okay. So what they did is they went through all the different cultures and they wanted to see with the Westernized United States version of the Big Five, what would cultures score as their highest one of those 5? And they're all different pretty much. And what we have found is a common theme, like in Westernized cultures, which would be the United States and Europe, neuroticism is the highest scoring when we give it to people who live in those cultures. Okay. I know if we give it to China, the Asian type cultures, it's conscientiousness. I think South America, Central America, it's agreeableness. So they all different cultures and areas score higher on a different trait. And not only that, you get ranked on all 5, and they're not all 5 in order either of the highest. So again, a great example of different cultures emphasize different things. They emphasize different traits. Certain traits are norms, but other societies don't. Okay. Also, very fascinating in the United States is what they've done is they've given the Big Five personality test and other personality tests just to segments of our country. And what they did is they divided it into 3 segments. You've got the East Coast, the West Coast, and then you've got the Midwest, which is kind of upper and lower Midwest. Also, the South would be in the Midwest, except for Texas, okay, which we know Texas is kind of like its own country. When we just recently went down to Galveston and Dallas, everybody's driving a truck, number one, and they all say Texas edition on the truck. I'm like, what is that about? And they just laughed. Our friends just laughed and said, well, that's just Texas for you. So, there's not a Missouri edition of any type of truck or anything like that. So they are their own country down there for sure. Okay. So the Texas is actually up here with the East Coast. They fit there when you did the personality test. So we give the East Coast personality test. They generally are more stressed, irritable, and temperamental. Okay. Which is probably what a lot of us would think of when we think of New York. All right. The West Coast is more relaxed, creative, and non-traditional, which I think would fit. And then the Midwest is friendly and traditional. Okay. And again, Texas would be up here. The South would be here, except for the Southeast, which would be up here. Okay. So we give personality tests to even different segments, even different regions in the United States, and we get different scores. And if we gave them just to specific states, we probably would have different scores. And then even cities within those states, we probably would have different scores. So again, it's very important, even your high school culture of Liberty North High School impacts learning, intelligence, behavior, personality. Okay. So, obviously, we have a lot of studies that validate that, and it can be replicated. Okay. And then also we've talked about individualistic versus collectivistic cultures. So again, United States and Western cultures are more individualistic. So we emphasize me. Again, my language, I have more personal references to me, personal pronouns than any other language in English. And then we have collectivistic cultures that emphasize unity, harmony, kind of family, okay, groups, okay. Now, as you can imagine, each one of those is going to have different personality profiles that they have a part of their beliefs, customs, norms, and traditions. Now, one that I actually found which I would not have thought of is introversion. Now, if you look at which one do you think would be more introverted, my tendency was to think that individualistic cultures would be introverted and collectivistic would be extroverted, but it's actually switched. Collectivistics are much more internal, internally reflective, reserved, energized by the internal world, okay, introverted. And individualistics are extroverted, okay? And it was explained to me that, that's a big part of your self-concept in our countries, is social interaction and so on and so forth, and your relationships instead of us. So over in these cultures, they don't emphasize that. It's the relationships in the family. So I don't really need to go outside. So it's very fascinating. Now also, with introversion, extroversion, there's also big studies that the United States used to be, like in the 1990s, early 90s when I went to college, extroversion ruled this country. I mean, most people, I think it was like almost 95% were reported as extroverts. Now, obviously, that is switching. Now we have much more higher reports of introversion. It's like our whole culture has shifted. So keep in mind that culture can change. So my beliefs, customs, norms, traditions can change, given certain time spans, certain seasons, to certain historical moments. Like, again, I'm sure culture will be forever historically changed once we get past the COVID-19 season that we're in and the experience. Our school will change probably forever. So, there's definitely going to be, one of my past independent students just sent me a great article on where do handshakes come from? Where did they originate? Because if you think about it, they don't promote sanitation and health because you're touching other people's hands. And then we know that most likely your hand is going to come up near your face. So, after this, maybe the handshake will just go completely away. And again, my favorite is the fist pump. So maybe we just do that. I don't know, but culture can change and can shift. So just be aware of that. Okay. Also, optimism versus pessimism. We know that in the early 90s, we were an optimistic country. And then, of course, through times of history, that has kind of diminished a little bit. And now, American culture is much more pessimistic than it used to be. And that's kind of the more of the norm than, the optimistic. Okay. All right. And then the last thing for today is the 3 different approaches to studying personality and culture. Okay. And how they kind of cross over. All right. The first one is a cultural comparison, right? And that is when basically culturally, okay, so a great example would be the Big 5 personality test. So that is a United States created test. It's a Western culture test. Okay. Now, if I'm going to take that test and give it to Japan, right, I'm taking a Western culture test and I'm putting it into another society. Okay. And then I want them to take it and see how they score. Okay. That's a cultural comparative method approach, because Japan has their own personality tests. They have people who create their own tests. So they don't need to take ours. They have their own tests. They have their own data. But if I just want to give my test to them and let them take it and see kind of the differences, that's the cultural comparative model. Okay. Also, Japan could give us their test and we can take it. So we talked about that in the WACE. How we have an American version of the WACE, you have a Chinese version of the WACE, Japanese version of the WACE. So that's all culturally comparative. Okay. Indigenous approach would be when I study another culture's information, their own information. So if I look at the Japanese version of the Big 5, if they have anything comparative to that, I'm sure that they do. I'm going to look at their study and I'm going to see how their people are scoring and how it reflects personality in that culture. Okay. So I'm not going to take an outside culturalistic look into their culture. This is just simply indigenous, all right, to their culture. All right, and the last one is a combined approach, okay, a combined approach. All right, now, one thing that I like as an analogy to learn this and know this is like a cross-cultural comparison would be like, okay, so let's take The Rise of Skywalker. We have movies and TV shows that are created in America. They're American versions of that. Okay, we've created it. Star Wars universe is one, okay? Now, when I show those movies into other cultures, that's culturally comparative, okay? So when I take Star Wars Rise of Skywalker and then I release it all over the world, that's this, okay? I'm taking a Western American created film, story, universe, and then I'm implanting it, I'm giving it to other cultures, okay? Now, Does Japan have its own version of Star Wars? Yes, they do. They have their own movies, universe that are similar to Star Wars that was created in Japan that's indigenous to those people in that culture. Okay. One of the great things, my wife and I love X-Files. We're big X-Files fans, which is one of the greatest sci-fi series ever created. And Japan actually does have their own version of that. It has a different name, but it's kind of like it's basically the same theme as X-Files. Different actors and actresses, you know, obviously, and so forth. But it was indigenous to their culture. They created it. They wrote it. They produced it, and they showed it on TV. Okay. Now we have ours, and ours can go into their culture. Theirs can go into ours. Okay. But that's the difference between these two. Okay. And then, of course, combined approach, you know, we can have Star Wars films that then the Japanese culture actually hires their own actors, but they do the Star Wars story as well. Okay. So this is when I take a culturally created model and then I want to compare it to another culture. And so I let them have it and I see what's going to happen. This is when I just study their different cultures. Okay. And then this is a combination of the both, which is generally mostly done. Okay. We obviously do this a lot, but we also like that, the indigenous part of it as well. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's number 4. So we're going to still continue on with personality a little bit next week. So again, remember all your personality chapter 15 stuff is not due till a week from tomorrow, which is April 17th. Again, no live broadcast or streaming on Fridays. So tomorrow's just a work day. And again, you don't have to work on psychology. You can work on anything you need to. But I think all the assignments for chapter 15 are in there now. I've got the quiz information in there now. I know I have students turning in the labs already today and the vocab. So again, the labs, just make sure you complete them. And then don't forget the scavenger hunt. Okay. So I have a hint in the thumbnail today. I'll send out another hint tonight after the copy of the notes. Again, and that is something that you can work on. It's not due till May 22nd or until I get 3 correct answers. Okay. So that's not due on the 17th. You can keep doing that and working on that if you want. And then again, prizes for the first 3 teams or people, then everybody who gets it gets is going to have a nice, I think it's going to be a nice prize, extra credit, and I'll have to do it the final. So, you know, make sure that you kind of give it a try. Okay. Any questions for today? And hopefully this one posts, hopefully this one loads. And again, I think the other one will load as well. Hopefully. Trying to think if there's any other announcements anybody asked. Oh, a good question about this study was Hawaii and Alaska. And unfortunately, I think I just missed that. That wasn't, I looked at the results in the map. So I looked at the map of the United States and then they had them summarized. So I know Hawaii and Alaska were on there. I would say Hawaii is probably going to be more Midwest. I think if people have been there, it's very slow paced. It's friendly. They're very traditional. And then Alaska, I don't know. Alaska is kind of its own country, really. So I'm not sure. You know, again, I know that Alaska has the highest case of addictive type behaviors, alcoholism. They have the most suicide attempts of any United States state. So it's just a very tough environment, very different in seasons, weather. You know, yeah, it's culturally, it's very different. So I don't even know if they would fit in one of these. They might have their own. Okay. See here, what else? Yeah, I think that's about it. So if you guys have any questions, if you need anything, just email me. Sorry again about the confusion on the in-class vocab. That is corrected. So again, both of those are worth 10 points and should be in the grade book now. Again, no rush on your assignments. You still got over a week. Work hard tomorrow, or, you know, treat yourself tomorrow. You know, just sleep in. And you can tell them that Mr. Davis gave you permission. Sleep in, do some work, and then take the afternoon off and just have a nice weekend. Okay? All right. If you need anything, let me know. Hello, Terry.